Hello everyone to the episode which is related to short living branches. It helps us to tackle down the branching problem that we quite often have inside our projects. So why short living branches and how is it different from long living branches? What does it mean in general? Imagine that you are working on some kind of a feature. This is the branch that is created by you, and this work will take you weeks until you finish it. So it doesn't matter if it is 1 week or 2 weeks, you will see why the problem might occur here. So you created it, you started working on it, and then you had every day to, let's say, rebase it on the main branch. So if you rebase it regularly on the main branch, then you are quite safe in the end of your work, but the reviewers won't be happy about it. If you forgot to rebase it on a regular basis, and it's quite often happening that we are so focused on the work that we want to do that we do not rebase it regularly. So after 1 week, or maybe 2 weeks of work, you try to get all the things from the main branch to your feature branch. And then the drama begins because you have to spend a couple of hours, maybe even a day, maybe 2 days on rebasing and merging all these things that were created during last 2 weeks by other people. So here we have a problem for you. But let's assume that you created it and you regularly rebased it on a daily basis. Then in the end of your work, your pull request contains 80 files that were changed and 75 commits or 110 commits. And you give it to the review to the person from your team. And this person usually, at least I do have it like that, like this. So when I see such branch, I am overwhelmed by it. I have to focus on so many different areas that my brain cannot tackle it down. Of course, I might be in the small group that cannot focus on so many different things, but as well, based on my experience, my teammates had the same problem. So when you see 100 files changed and 100 commits, then you don't know where to start. What do you do usually? First thing is that you go into this code review and you go file by file to search for the things that can be improved. And of course, if this is some kind of a variable naming, extraction of the method and so on, this is quite easy because you just go, as I said, you go by a sequence. So first file, second file, third file, fourth, and so on. The problem starts when you have some architectural concept here, maybe some kind of a design pattern that you need to focus on more than one file. So now you need to find all the files that were related to it. Okay. Someone can say that it's of course possible that every single commit is somehow isolated, atomic. So the changes inside one commit are touching only one area. So if I am creating some kind of code that implements a design pattern, then I will have a commit related to design pattern. So great, I can go by commit by commit instead of file by file. But again, it's quite often not done in this way. So the commits are mixed and you have as well some kind of refactoring, maybe renaming of variables and methods and classes and so on. So it creates some kind of a cognitive complexity here. Now, when I am looking at it, I might go with multiple different iterations. So I do the review, I check all the files, and I first look at the basic things like the renaming of the fields, restructuring code inside one class, and so on. So now we have the first iteration. So the author of the code receives my inputs. Now he starts working on reworking the stuff. So after he's done with reworking, he gives me back the work, the code. I now look at it again. Maybe I will find another thing and another thing related to that, but now I can focus more on the bigger scope, patterns, architecture, structure, and so on. And we are following with multiple different iterations because this code is touching so many different areas, so many different places that I have to focus on. And after several reviews like that, you might be tired of doing reviews. And then someone will give another pull request and he will need to wait a long time because you don't want to do that. So this is something that you can take and spend another couple of hours, or in the worst case scenario, someone can say, okay, here are a few variable renamings and other looks good to me. So LGTM shortcut. And this is the worst thing that can happen because usually you are putting more and more not reviewed code into your code base, and then you will start having a lot of problems in future with maintaining such a code. So there are a couple of solutions to tackle it down. One solution is that you are always doing some kind of a pair programming or mob programming that either two or many other people are looking at what you are typing and then you are switching and everyone is involved there. So then this pull request is not needed for this feature branch. So you can just create the pull request and hit the merge button. That's it in the end. So this is first solution. Second solution is that you can just drop thinking about branches. So you can go without branches, and then with pair programming or mob programming, you can just merge all the code that you are doing directly into main. Or you can use short-living branches. And this is exactly what I will describe now. You remember, you had this big feature. You can divide it into smaller parts. So if I have a feature that will take me 2 weeks, maybe I can plan it in a way that I will show this inside the UI or integrate it as algorithm in my code in the last step of implementation. I can now focus on the first thing. So I can prepare maybe some kind of a design icon, and this could be the first short-living branch, and it will take you around 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, and someone will for sure review it because you will have maybe 4 files changed with 5 commits or 7 commits. Then from the cognitive complexity, it's quite clear what I have to review because I see that I have 4 files, 7 commits. I can go through commits, I can go through files, and I can see that commits are, for example, clean. So they are isolated, they are atomic, they are changing just one thing at a point in time. So this is the first thing. Second thing is that I can go by file and look what was changed. And I have only 4. So you can imagine how good and how deep my review will be here, because I can spend half an hour on it and it will be extremely covered with the cases that I was able to think of, and maybe as well some rework. So now the guy waited half an hour for the review, he did some change, and then he merged this feature branch into the main. It took us a couple of hours, and next time when I receive this code for the review, I will be able quickly to get in and it won't overwhelm me. I will do this with a smile on my face because I know that it will take just couple of minutes, maybe half an hour to do this review, and it will all work fine. Next thing that you can do is that you can create some kind of a business rule, and this can be in another branch, and this business rule which you will have will be as well tested. So it will have unit tests and the business rule itself in this branch that you are creating, but it's not yet integrated. So then you can create in another branch, short-living one, another business rule, cover it with tests and so on. And maybe if you have 4 or 5 business rules, then you can create branch for every business rule, then the branch for integrating it. And now it's done. It's integrated into the code, and afterwards your feature is completed. And it's quite easy because, first of all, when you do the short-living branches, you have usually small amount of work there, so not a lot of files, not a lot of commits. If you have a lot of files, then usually it means that you did some kind of renaming, but then this is a branch for renaming or restructuring something, and this is touching only this area, and it was also achieved in a couple of hours. So this is great here. Second thing which you have is that you can give it to the reviewer and he won't be overwhelmed. So this is a great thing again. Third thing is that you will be really agile. So you will be able to do these changes quite fast. So whatever you have to do, it will be faster than with these long living branches. Fourth point is that whole team will review it faster. So because people who will get used to these short living branches, they will all do that. And it will allow you to get the review way faster than when you are doing this long living branches. And of course, point number 5 is that your feedback loop is shortened to the minimum. If you look for recommendations, I can give you several ones. First, analyze the feature and split it as much as possible. So split it to many different short living branches. It can be 15 different branches that will be coming in during next two weeks, which are related to one feature. So this is recommendation number 1. Recommendation number 2, if you discover new work, because you are not able to analyze everything from scratch in the beginning. So if you find a new work, then create new branch for it. Recommendation number 3 is the shorter, the better. So of course you can start from saying inside your team that, okay, 2 days for short living branches are great. So if some work is done in 2 days, now you need to define what 2 days mean to you. So maybe it is twice 8 hours, so it gives you 16 hours, or maybe it's 6 hours or 12 hours, or this is a kind of definition from your side. So you can start with these 2 days, then try to shorten it to 1 day, then try to shorten it even more. So quite often when the team gets comfortable with short living branches, it takes around 2 to 4 hours to start and finish the short living branch. Recommendation number 4, the less the better. So the less changes inside the branch are, the better it is for the reviewer from the cognitive complexity. So he will not feel overwhelmed. Of course, as mentioned, when you are refactoring code, like renaming functions, variables, classes, and so on, you can divide it within a branch. So you can have a branch just for renaming, and you are doing it, and you have like 55 files changed with one commit, maybe with several different commits. In general, it's easier to review the code when you have really small amount of changes there. Recommendation number 5, when you are splitting the work, just start from the bottom. So from the things which are not visible to the user. If you have API and you have a database change, don't start with the API, because maybe you will forget to hide it or so, and it will be visible to the user, or you will change existing feature and it will become visible to the user. So really start from the bottom. Maybe you will need feature toggles to put here that it is not visible from the code perspective if you are integrating some algorithm, before you say, okay, feature toggle on, and then it's integrated into the code. So from my experience, short living branches are quite a big step forward in comparison to long living ones. This is something in the middle between long living branches and no branches at all. So you have here this short living branch, the knowledge is split faster across the entire team, because you might have multiple different reviewers of one area. If you have 15 branches instead of one, probably there will be different people who will be looking at it. So it's a great from the knowledge sharing perspective. It as well speeds up the code review process, because you are usually not waiting a long time to make it, and it helps to tackle down the problems that would have been spotted after 2 weeks. So if I create some kind of a pattern or business rule, after 1 day I am able to say, oh no, it's not correct, so we are getting back after 1 day. Instead, if you are doing long living branches, you have 2 weeks cycle, for example, 2 weeks cycle, and after 2 weeks you recognize that something is wrong there, and now you need to refactor a lot more than if you do that with a split to multiple different branches. But be careful, it can be as well harmful to your product, especially when you are doing the short living branches incorrectly. So if you haven't thought about the split correctly, you might see some artifacts in production which you don't want to see. So like mentioned before, you might change some kind of existing functionality when all other things are not yet ready, or you might show up the new functionality to the public API and it can be used by anyone, and it might as well harm your system because it's maybe not secured, it's maybe not integrated with other parts of the system, and so on. So be careful while doing that, but in general I highly recommend you to move to the short-living branches area. If you prefer to read more about short-living branches and you prefer to read instead of watching the video, I invite you to my blog, meaboutsoftware.com, and then you can find the blog post about short-living branches. And I will put as well a link in the comments section. So if you like my video, just thumb up, subscribe, and see you in the next episode.